Of course you wanted a dungeon. You just didn't want this dungeon. Welcome to the Oubliette 5-star experience for people you want to unremember. Picture a pit deep beneath Carcassonne, so tight the only thing you can stretch is your regret. No bed, no pillow, meant just a vertical drop, and the kind of darkness that'd make even Saint Denis beg for a blindfold. Medieval hospitality at its most literal. We drop you, then drop the subject. Congratulations, your furniture now. Don't worry about company. Louis IX might shove you in for heresy or for suggesting grapes aren't a vegetable. In the Tower of London, they kept you below the rats because even rodents had a social ladder. And food? Hope you're on the fasting plan. Emperor Frederick II preferred starvation therapy centuries before detox smoothies. No light, no food, no prayers. What's French for customer service? Down here, the only feedback form is screaming. You think medieval Paris smelled bad up top? Try marinating in your own fear while the Benedictines upstairs debate relic prices. Like Airbnb, but for disease. Spoiler, you're the abandoned property. You want the knight-shining armor, heroic jawline Tinder bio before swiping was invented. Instead, you get the oubliette, forgetting place. A deep stone cylinder under Chateau de Loche, just big enough for your sins and zero room for regret. No light, no food, no prayers. Dolce Gabbana, try maggot and mildew. Knights dreamed of chivalry got a pit courtesy of Philip the Bold's redecorating spree-throw prisoners in. Skip the trial, lose the key, like Airbnb, but for tetanus. You're not jousting in Visby, just listening to your own teeth rot. The only rescue is Jean Toulabon's tax collector scraping above, demanding fealty from the black mold. Richard the Lionheart got ransom. You get to argue with spiders in the dark. Down here, the only code of honor is don't die screaming loud enough for the guards to notice. Knight in shining armor? You're a skin bag in a well-rip your heroic fantasy. Think your last open house was a horror show? Try the oubliette, France's gift to vertical real estate and existential dread first made famous at Chateau de Loche. You fall through a trapdoor, don't land on a cushion, and definitely never leave. Welcome to the medieval forgetting room, where the price of admission is treason, heresy, or sometimes just being the wrong messenger. Home decor, stone moisture, and other people's femurs. Here's your daily agenda: 0 sunlight, no soup, and the Parisian rats from 1417, who don't care if you're ex-noble or just late on your taxes. Ask Sir John Talbot got extra years of English aristocracy shoved into a space the size of a coffin. The Count of Meaux once bragged his oubliette promoted silence. Passive-aggressive landlord medieval edition. Remember when Avignon's plague doctors hid behind masks and thought not breathing much was science? Inside the oubliette, you get the same treatment minus the mask or the science. If the monk's tossing you and quote Psalm 88, that's not comfort, it's sarcasm with a side of disease. Enjoy your open concept floor plan. No doors, no visits, no escape. Just you and that smell that's history, and you're soaking in it. Big talk about medieval justice, but nothing says fair trial like naming your prison the oubliette, French for the place you're supposed to forget. Not your keys, not your wallet, literal people. This is what happens when King Louis XI gets bored. Dig a pit in the Chateau de Loche. Drop someone in head first and see if gravity or starvation finishes the job. Medieval France called it penal innovation. You'd call it escape room, but without the clues. Or the escape. No light, no food, no prayers. Just you, a rat, the collected urine of every guard who ever wished for a promotion, and enough mold to kill Guy de Chauliac twice. Pope Gregory IX had a favorite trick: forget Vatican forgiveness order, a heretic below street level in Perugia, then leave them to puzzle out salvation with 0 exits. For entertainment, Paris once threw its condemned into oubliettes and called it letting justice descend, literal trial by gravity. Still more transparent than modern politics. Think solitary is bad. Try dungeon Jenga, stack enough traders in loches or Chateau d'Angers, and you don't get overcrowding, you get compost. And if you're very lucky, you'll end up as part of a skeleton Wallacky Visby after 1361 when they turned human remains into battlefield decor. Congratulations, you're finally part of the architecture. You're picturing a French oubliette as some deep emo pit for sad princes. Cute. Try an upright coffin carved in stone beneath the Chateau de Loche, a hole so tight Margaret of Anjou probably envied the rats for all that legroom. No food, no light, no chamber pot unless you count the puddle under your feet. Spoiler, you're standing in everyone's greatest hits since 1399. Forget Do Not Disturb. Castel Sant'Angelo had oubliettes where the only turn-down service was a bucket dropped once a week maybe. Alexander VI used them as his own private get-out-of-papal bulls free card. Except you're not getting out, ever. Like Airbnb, but for tetanus. You write your complaints in the stone a la Guy de Chauliac, except he scribbled plague cures, you're just recording your smell. When the only exit is death, you stop believing in saints and start envying the sewage. You wanted medieval authenticity? Congrats. You've joined the skull collection. You want bread? Cute. You're about to get an oubliette, basically medieval France's answer to go stand in the corner and starve forever. But make it vertical. In Chateau de Loche, they just dropped you in a stone shaft deep enough that you could see your dignity spiral on the way down. No ladder, no bucket, not even bad poetry to keep you company. Forget solitary. This is sensory deprivation with medieval panache. You sit in your own excrement wishing you'd bribed the town baker with something spicier than a sumptuary law-band pie. In 1430, Joan of Arc got a cell with daylight. You're not Joan. You get a vertical oubliette and a front row seat to your own skeleton reveal. Like a human Tamagotchi, but the French just forget to feed you. They called this mercy, by the way. Apparently, Pontius de la Rochefoucauld, Lord of Angoulême, claimed oubliette deaths were bloodless. Sure, except for the rats, the dysentery, and the part where your legacy is an urban legend about why nobody likes you at dinner. So eat your bread. That's a luxury crime. Forget sunlight. Imagine being blessed enough for Sir John Talbot to throw you in an oubliette French word that literally means forgetting. Paris 1450, you're not so much forgotten as deleted like medieval spam. Congratulations. You're now property of the Chateau de Vincennes basement, where architects dreamed up vertical holes for extra flavor. No light, no food, no windows. Just you, your regrets, and the scent of 50 past tenants marinating below. The genius part? It wasn't big enough to lie down, stand, or crumple. You're a living wine cork if wine cried and slowly starved. Try praying the monks of Cluny might toss in a relic St. Blas's toe maybe, but relics don't float. At best, you'll catch the next sewer flow to the Seine. At worst, you're the compost heap behind an Inquisition bonus points if you confess to reading Jan Hus. Tourists line up for castles and tapestries, never the oubliette. Marketing problem, can't selfie in total darkness. You think medieval torture was creative? Number, it was lazy. Witness the oubliette Paris's answer to out of sight, out of job. You go in vertical shaft, stone collar, no stairs, no witness. Welcome to Chateau de Loche. The French invented the silo of despair. Not enough room to sit, not enough shame to care. They tossed John Talbot, Earl of Shrewsbury, into one at Rouen. Local legend says his teeth marks are still on the wall. Too dark to read a Bible, too damp for mold to grow. That's right, bacteria tapped out first. No trial, no verdict. Just drop and forget like Avignon's plague, dead stack 'em, brick 'em, pray for rain. Every Rochefort runs a let God sort them out. Special half price on screams, full price on silence. Like Airbnb but for despair and rats. Still think the oubliette is metaphor? Try spelling hope from a pile of broken femurs. Good luck, no light, no food, no exit. Congratulations. You've officially been ghosted by history. You want medieval fun? Try the oubliette French for oops, forgot you, but sexier. Expect a personal dungeon at Chateau de Loche, just wide enough to stand, not wide enough to die with dignity. No windows, no light, no apology from King Charles VI, who once locked up family for their own good. Forget food, unless you count rat surprise with a side of black mold. Avignon priests called it reflection time. Translation, dehydration, hallucinations, and praying to Saint Dymphna for mental health coverage she never gave. The only air you get is irony right through an iron grate. Bonus points for watching your own future skeleton. Milan, meanwhile, walled plague victims at home, which was at least marginally roomier. The oubliette was DIY coffin. But make it feudal. Still think escape rooms are stressful? Imagine a pit designed so even your ghost can't climb out. Medieval hospitality check-in, freak-out check-out as nutrients for the next guest. You think social anxiety is bad? Try the Oubliette, medieval France's hottest club, where getting in is literally a death sentence and the coat check is just stripping you of hope. Here's the deal. They'd pop you down a narrow shaft in Chateau de Pierrefonds or Warwick Castle, then forget you existed, hence the name. Oubliette, darling. You don't get a window. You don't get food. You don't get the priest unless he's fallen in by mistake. Just stone walls, your own urine, and the kind of darkness that makes Avignon's plague pits look like a spa weekend. No visits from friends, no letters, not even a heads up from the sheriff that you're on the menu. Charles VI's men threw traitors in so deep, even Saint Denis wouldn't fetch them, but at least the Parisians let you become soup in the Seine. Here it's just you, a gaming dice carved by rats, and the sound of your teeth cracking. Like solitary, but the Wi-Fi is malnutrition, and your therapist is dehydration. They didn't bother with last meal speeches. It's hard to deliver a eulogy to something you've already forgotten. Congrats, your medieval France's answer to email spam, out of sight, out of mind, out of luck. You think you know what solitary confinement is? Sweet summer child. Let's talk oubliette, for when the castle guards in Chateau de Loche wanted you gone, not just out of sight, but out of possible, they'd drop you in a vertical pit you couldn't climb out of if you came back as a ghost. No light, no food, not even rats to keep you company. They had better places to be. This isn't time out for grown-ups. It's group therapy for sadists. Guards in Avignon took actual bets on how long you'd scream. The jester ran a dead pool and the bishop pretended it was penance. If you were lucky, they threw in a crust of bread once a week. Lucky, as in, congrats, you're entertaining. Men whose job description is make strangers disappear. This is the medieval HR department. The only exit interview is with St. Peter. Guy de Chauliac wrote about patients going mad in darkness. Except you're not a patient, you're the punchline. Earth above, stone below, guilty until fossilized. Like Airbnb, but non-refundable. You want prime real estate? Welcome to the oubliette. Basically a basement studio, but the landlord is the Duke of Burgundy, and your security deposit is your sanity. You get one door. It's the ceiling. They drop you in. They forget you exist. Forget? Oublier means forget. The French loved a pun and a slow, silent breakdown. Still think your landlord's bad? At least he doesn't charge you extra for the rats. Don't expect turned-down service. Chateau d'If makes this look like a luxury spa. Philip the Good, that's right. The Good kept his rivals in circular oubliettes outside Dijon. Try using natural light as a selling point for a room so dark, the only color you'll see is your own vomit. Mold? That's not decor, it's medieval penicillin. You better hope it works, because no water fountain, just the drip from the corpse above. Worst part? There's no fire escape. unless you count being hauled out for a quick beheading in Rouen if you're important. If you're not, enjoy your new neighbors, old bones, flea colonies, and a wall that leaks. Medieval subletting, you always leave a piece behind, usually a radius. You thought the oubliette was just an edgy French word for time out? Cute. Day 6 and you're still alive. That's failure by medieval standards. Remember, King John didn't even last 2 days before whining for surrender at Chateau Gaillard. And you? Still shivering, still chained. No visitors, not even a rat. Even the mouse droppings are judging you. In Paris, they called it La Petite Oubliette, the little forgetting, as if Napoleon's dad bod was memory foam and not a sub-basement that made Guantanamo look like a confessional. No food, no light, no prayers. Dubrovnik had a law: if you survived more than 7 days in the hole, you owed them rent. Try Venmoing torture, see how that feels. They tossed plague victims into pits, but you're on the deluxe plan limestone sweat lodge, iron collar, and daily sides of hallucination. Welcome to Spa Day, starring Guy de Chauliac's fever dreams, and yes, the only prescription is wait for bones. Still cold, still chained, still not dead. Give it a week, you'll wish for the rats. You think escape rooms are tough? Try the oubliette. The French even named it after to forget. You drop in, gravity handles the rest, and suddenly you're a vertical meat deposit below Chateau de Loche. No light, no food, no prayers. This isn't Dungeons & Dragons. There's no rogue to pick the lock, just 30 feet of stone shaft, and the unpleasant realization that King John of England used this trick long before your therapist suggested mindfulness. Avignon called them les trous d'oubli, holes of forgetting, because nothing says welcome to papal hospitality like a solitary dirt coffin with a door you can't reach. Bonus feature: rats. They don't pay rent. Neither do your bones. Meanwhile, the city council is upstairs debating sumptuary laws so peasants don't dress too stylish, as if misery accessorizes well with rags and filth. Gravity wins every time, especially when the only ladder is built from the last idiot's femurs. You thought dungeons were bad? The oubliette was just nobles showing you why out of sight, out of mind is a literal death sentence. Picture Philippe IV of France, the Iron King himself, telling his peasants the oubliette is for only the truly wicked, then ignoring half his tax list while another John Doe rots upside down in Narbonne's stone basement. No trial, no daylight, no questions. Here's how it works. They drop you in a pit barely wider than your own panic attack, slap on an iron grate and call it security. Food, tossed down if the guard's bored. Water, maybe some from Avignon's rat-infused aqueduct for flavor. Pope Boniface VIII once said, "Let the body be punished so the soul might learn pretty words," for a guy running an open-air torture chamber on the side. The best part? The entire village could hear the screams, but the count would say it was just the wind. Meanwhile, Bruges Town Council wrote official bylaws for cleaning the oubliette between executions. Like Airbnb, but for plague boils and existential despair. Nobody came back. But hey, at least your landlord wasn't asking for first and last month's rent, just your last breath. You think solitary confinement is bad? Welcome to the oubliette, architected exclusively for narcissists, with a lordship complex and cheap masonry. Paris gave you Notre Dame Chateau de Loche, gave you a pit with a lid. It's French for forget, which is exactly what they did with you and your life expectancy. No light, no food, no urine bucket. Your only roommate, the echo of your last meal, and the hope you die before the Duke of Burgundy remembers he hates you. Nice touch, letting you dangle by one arm just long enough to envy the guy at Montferrand who got flayed instead. At least skin grows back in the next life. Richard II supposedly dropped enemies in these holes, like he was making medieval smoothies. Meanwhile, Avignon invested in plague hospitals and quarantined 40 days of bougie beach jail while you got dirt for dinner. Less drama, more dysentery. Congratulations. You just got outlasted by a plague rat and outclassed by a wall. You think the rats are bad? Try surviving in a French castle with the architectural equivalent of a trash chute to the underworld. Welcome to the Oubliette. A personal forget-me-not that's all stone, no light, and a floor made of old bones. In Chateau de Loche, they dropped you down the shaft, slammed the cover, and called it penance. No trial, no food, just an audience of your own fingernails on stone. Try praying, but Saint Roch won't hear you. He's too busy fending off plague zombies in Avignon. Forget waterboarding, this is full-body gaslighting. Your only roommate is gravity, unless you count the last guy's corpse melting into your ankles. Someone in Dubrovnik once got their nose sliced off for pickpocketing. At least that's over in a minute. Here you get time. Not reflect on your crimes. Time just enough to wonder if the ceiling, the rats, or your own screams will end you first. Like solitary confinement, but with a medieval Yelp review, would rather the Black Death. You thought solitary confinement was bad? Welcome to the Oubliette, aka the Get Lost Pit. Legend says Louis XI of France called these vertical tombs lettres de cachet with a trapdoor. No trial, no warning, just you a slimy hole at Chateau de Loche and the world's worst elevator music, your own screaming. Still think your panic room's claustrophobic? They didn't invent oubliettes for drama, they invented them for bookkeeping. Quicker than beheading, cheaper than a priest. Once you're in, you're out. No light, no food, no rescue, just centuries of noble bones greeting your fall like a medieval Yelp review. And if you're lucky, you find the jawbone of that English spy from Calais who took left on read to the archaeological record. Who needs gravestones when your skeleton's filing for overtime? In 1431, Joan of Arc got an oubliette cameo in Rouen. Chains, mud, and 2 feet of royal indifference made dungeon influencer look glamorous in comparison. You want revenge. Here's your proof, future archaeologists with PhDs in misery, picking through ossuaries, cataloging every petty feud by femur. Congrats. You are now medieval evidence petrified, ignored, and still getting ghosted. Of course you want to believe the oubliette is just French for bad basement. Sorry, you're thinking of Paris Airbnbs. The oubliette was the place you put something you want to forget. Like ex-wives, war crimes, or the Avignon papacy. Drop a person through a trapdoor. Congratulations, your problem now smells like medieval plumbing. You fantasized dungeons meant Iron Maidens and spiked walls. But in Chateau de Loche, you get a hole, a bucket, and 5 feet of air. No windows, no ladder, no Rotten Tomatoes score. Better hope your name isn't John Talbot. He spent years in a cell so low you couldn't even stand to curse the king. Welcome to history's most literal cellular plan. No reception, unlimited darkness. Let's not forget the paperwork. Executioners at Vincennes Fortress were so efficient they kept guest lists. If a noble's cousin vanished after spilling soup on Charles VI, you know where to look. Spoiler, you still can't see anything. Medieval justice, out of sight, out of mind, out of daylight. Just pray they don't remember you in the footnotes. You want a legacy? Here's what you get: the oubliette, named by the French because hole where we forget you exist looked stupid on a coat of arms. Welcome to the original medieval unsubscribe button. You get tossed in a stone shaft under Chateau de Loche. The locals nail down the hatch, and that's it. No light, no food, no prayers. Like Airbnb, but for shame and rats. You think Newgate Prison had bad reviews? Edward I once stuffed Scottish rebels into oubliettes out of sheer personal spite. Got caught. Down the hatch. Congrats, now you share a basement with centuries of skeletons who learned too late that habeas corpus means zip when your jailer hates Latin. Tourism today means snapping selfies outside the slot while you pretend Bram Stoker would swipe right. No matter how much you tip your guide, he's lying when he says, nobody dies here anymore. Tourist trap meet trauma trap. You pay to gawk at misery like you invented it. In 1377, Dubrovnik chopped noses for petty theft. In the Oubliette, they just let you rot. But now it's a gift shop. Buy your plastic Oubliette keyring, then flex your trauma on Instagram. You survived 20 minutes. They did centuries. Still hot, still bleeding.